Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Better Half Relationship Podcast. And it's just a great time to be able to talk around the ABC of relationships. So, what makes the relationship work? What makes marriage work? And I have with me my wife, my own better half, my friend Bola. Bola will be talking about some of these areas as we just banter and chat together. I know that there's a lot for you to pick from this series. This series we've chosen to call the ABC of marriage or ABC of relationship. So we're going to cover three specific areas. So Bola, let's start with this first episode in the three series. What's the first thing that you think is this basic ABC of relationship or marriage?
I mean, it's interesting that when you think about ABCs, you're talking about the building blocks, the very foundation, right? When you talk about ABCs, a child going to school is learning the building blocks of language, of communication, of interaction. So when we talk about the ABCs of building a successful relationship, the first thing that comes to mind for me is authenticity. And authenticity can be a really big word. And for someone who is joining this podcast today and asking the question, what do you really mean when you talk about authenticity? You will agree that it's easy these days to go around wearing a mask. Literally, it's so easy to go around these days wearing a mask. And I won't demonize the mask wearers. I mean, if you've ever had your heart broken, or you've ever been misunderstood, we naturally tend to grow a shell to protect ourselves from hurt. But when we say authenticity is critical and pivotal for a successful relationship, we're then saying that when you want to build a relationship, a successful relationship, then you really need to get in touch with who you truly are, and you have to be willing to be vulnerable.
So you're talking about the freedom to be you, to be who you are, to bring your real self on. And without that, a relationship or a marriage cannot really thrive. Bringing your half self or your covered up self, and all that just has a way of slowing everything down. I don't know who I'm dealing with, right?
Yeah, there's that, and also the aspect where you're only bringing the parts of you that you don't mind if it gets bruised or bashed or broken. And you're hiding the most critical elements of yourself away because you've been hurt in the past, or you don't know if this person I'm dealing with really understands how to value me or how to treat me.
Yeah.
It's interesting when we've just got married, my husband and I used to pull him aside sometimes and warn him, when we're going out now, where we're going right now, you're not allowed to share certain stories. Because at that point in time, I knew that he was a very free individual. He would say anything, anywhere.
I just want to say my mind.
He just wanted to say his mind.
Yeah.
And for me, that was very scary. I mean, the introvert that I am, the idea that I'm out with this guy and he could say literally anything. I didn't know. I wouldn't have enough room to even, prepare myself for some of the shocks, and to manage some of the conflict we used to have back in the day. I would pull him aside before we went out and warn him, certain topics are off limits. You cannot discuss this out there where we're going. And just in case that's you and you're wondering, how does authenticity really play out in my relationship? The truth is, you can get to the point where you're not even willing to share deep things with your spouse, either because of the fear of exposure, or just the fear that they may take something really sacred to you and just use it as a point of, as another reason to bash you. It becomes another tool in their toolkit when a quarrel comes up. A young lady, for example, who told her fiance that, maybe I had an abortion, for example, before we met. And that, I'm really scared that this person may use this against me if it ever became a conflict situation.
So if I can just dive in here, where's the place of boundaries and authenticity? Where that in this relationship, yeah, we still have personal boundaries and all, but I still have to be authentic. Where's the place of that?
So if I draw again on the story I just shared about our early days in marriage, I mean, you'll agree with me that where we are today is not where we were then.
Yeah.
We had to start out putting those boundaries in place. In fact, more for me than for you. In just stating, look, I'm only comfortable sharing important things with you if this will not become a subject of, casual conversation when we're out in public. Especially where you're just getting to know each other and you are getting stronger and bolder in that journey of bringing your authentic and full self into the relationship. It's important to set boundaries before we engage in that way, before we go into the really deep waters of delving into who you are, who I am, what I've done, where I've been, and before I'm willing to be naked and unashamed with you. We need to establish what the parameters are, and that's where boundaries come.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I've seen in counseling situations where the problem started from dating and they eventually still got married, but the problem was still there in the sense that I told you something about myself, and before I know it, you told your parents, you told your siblings, and they couldn't handle it.
They couldn't handle it.
You feel I'm still okay like that, but your mom feels I'm not okay. I'm a damaged good.
Exactly.
And this boy or this lady is bringing a damaged person into this family, and they continue to see me like that, and and all that, and it just creates a lot of problem in marriage, which is why living and cleaving is very important, where that you have left parents, left siblings, left friends, and there is this nuclear community or nuclear arrangement that we now have, where I can be authentic, you can be authentic. What others may not be able to handle about me, you can handle about me. That's why you're willing to stake your life to marry me and be with me with all my issues. That leads us to talking about baggage. We all get into marriage or relationships without baggage.
That's true.
But if you truly love me, that means to some extent you can handle my baggage.
Yeah.
But mama may not be able to handle my baggage.
Yeah.
So you then need, as I try to be authentic with you, you need to be able to
properly gauge.
Yeah, properly gauge, things that should not go out. As simple as a couple I counseled many years ago, intending couple, eventually they couldn't get married because the guy realized that the lady was like a year older. Yeah. And then, as they got closer, obviously the lady knew that she was a year older than this guy. And the lady went and just told her dad. And her dad couldn't handle it. I don't know, just a traditional mindset. Why would you marry somebody that's younger than you, blah, 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 blah. And they came back to me and I said, look, this is not an issue. The only problem is that you told your dad.
Yeah.
And you should have been able to gauge whether you will be able to handle it. This guy is trying to be authentic. So there are guys and ladies who will tell you all kinds of things you want to know. Yeah. But to cut a long story short, that relationship failed. They didn't get married. I still know the two of them today. They are both married and slugging it out in their marriages.
Respective marriages.
They in their respective marriages, but they really loved each other and they really wanted to get married. And I remember the last time I spent with them before they broke up, the lady was really, really battered because she felt she had to obey her dad. But I said, you put yourself in this situation because you gave him too much information. If you had just slowed things down, But in marriage, let's get into marriage. In marriage, the ship has sailed.
The ship has sailed.
So
you've signed the dotted line.
You have to be able to cope with some of those things that that have to do with authenticity. And when we discuss authenticity, trust then becomes a big issue.
Oh, trust.
Yeah.
Trust and respect.
Yeah.
I think in this conversation about authenticity, trust and respect are on the same scale on this continuum. Because if I will trust you, I also want to sense that you have respect for what I'm saying, for my person in bringing this important, whole self to you, and on the flip side as well, if I feel like a person has disrespected who I am, where I'm coming from, what I've done, where I've been, you know, it kind of puts a dampener on that journey of trust. It's difficult to trust someone who does not respect you or doesn't respect where you're going. You may not like where I've been and what I've done, but if you say you respect me, then you can respect the entire journey, right? And refuse to make that a point at which everything disintegrates and the entire relationship, is then completely destroyed just on that singular point.
So talking about A for authenticity, as we're talking about ABC of marriage or relationship.
Successful relationship.
Successful relationship. A for authenticity. I want us to start to wrap up
the conversation.
On authenticity.
Before we do wrap up on authenticity, I think maybe the balance I just really wanted to leave us with as well is healthy exposure. I think that's the word to use. Healthy exposure and demasking has a science to it. I don't think it's healthy to meet someone the first time and immediately begin to unpack all of your baggage in a bid to be authentic. Oh, you hear people say, oh, I must speak my mind. This is my mind. I must tell you who I am so you know up front. I think that can be very counterproductive. I think you grow in trusting someone. You test the shallow waters before you go deeper. You try someone out with relatively...
So what you're saying is that you don't offload your baggage on a stranger.
On a stranger, thank you.
So you need to know that this person can be trusted and we're getting into each other. So this person qualifies to know a bit more about me, And, like we say, leaving father and mother and cleaving to a spouse is not a one-day thing. It's a journey. So it's quite progressive, because we keep cleaving and getting closer and getting closer. And the more, intimacy, we say, is into me you see. The more of me that you can see from within me, the more intimate we become. And we know that we're going on this journey together. But at some point, when people's baggage start to overwhelm them, it creates some kind of filter, So when I'm trying to be authentic and your filters are overpowering me, you don't see me the way I'm portraying myself. You see me through the lens of your own mind. So do you want to speak to that power of baggage and filter as we wrap this up?
The one way I can probably try to illustrate it is this. A man who has been in a relationship, for example, where perhaps a woman, lied constantly, perpetually, all through the relationship, and then the relationship fails. If he's trying to build a relationship with someone else and she comes and mentions to him, oh, I'm so sorry that you couldn't reach me today. My phone was having an issue. He's immediately beginning to receive her communication through the lens of the former relationship he had where someone had lied constantly. So that's where he begins to second guess everything and begins to question, simple things. And imagine this girl now in this relationship, possibly a very honest person, a very straightforward person, and she's wondering, I don't know why he doesn't trust me. I don't know why he cannot take my words. It's not you, sister. It's the baggage he has brought in from the past relationship. And the same way it's illustrating lies, you can layer that in so many different areas of life. Unless we are very intentional about facing up to the fact that, look, I am wearing these filters. There's baggage and there are experiences I've been through that are coloring the way I see you, the way I speak.
Yeah. So for instance, somebody who has suffered rejection in a previous relationship, when you get into a relationship, that rejection, if they have not healed of it, if they have not dealt with it, it then becomes a filter with which every action of the other person
is misinterpreted. Exactly.
To the point that the person is losing authenticity in that relationship.
They become too afraid to actually express themselves because this person is just going to pick this as,
Yeah. So these are things that can really shut down authenticity. But what we're saying is that authenticity is key. It has to be achieved in a relationship. We grow into it, bringing our authentic self into every relationship, especially a marriage relationship. But we must not really get stuck in that place where we start to give excuses for not being authentic again, where trust
has gone out the window.
It's gone out of the window. It's no longer the foundation of our home. If you really want a successful marriage, a successful relationship, you have to focus on being authentic. And from big baggage to small baggage, people have suffered all kinds of things. Let me just share this lastly. The couple I counseled a few years ago, that's some of the biggest baggage I've ever seen, where this person got married a second time, but in the first marriage, he actually had an experience where the 2 kids in that marriage were not his own. And it's a marriage that lasted a few years. And one day,
so he had been deceived.
They had to do a DNA and realized that the first child was not his own, then the second child was not his own. The marriage eventually got busted. They actually eventually discovered the father of the kids, and all that. Now in another marriage, it's a lot to deal with. And I'm saying that for somebody, a listener today, to understand that whatever baggage you're bringing into a relationship, through counseling, therapy, prayers, whatever, just allowing, healing your heart, you can actually deal with it. Because engaging in that counseling, I realized that the guy had a lot to deal with. Right. And you can't blame him. How do you survive that kind of situation and be able to move on and bring your authentic self into another relationship? But for someone today, yours may not be that big, maybe a small issue, whatever it is, it shouldn't be big enough to destroy your relationship. Tell yourself, I still need to bring my A game on, to be vulnerable, to be authentic, and to build a foundation of trust in this relationship. Without it, a relationship cannot be successful.
Yeah.
Final word.
Final words, authenticity is critical. I mean, how long do you want to go? It's not sustainable to be a fake person. It's just not sustainable. You can pretend, in the early stages, but at some point, who you really are will show. So it's critical to be authentic, be real, but layer it on a trusting, loving relationship that is growing in the direction of healing.
So that's it on this first part of the series. It's going to be a 3-part series, the ABC of Successful Marriage. And the first part was shared on authenticity. We'll be with you again very soon. And please listen, share this with somebody, post it on your social media, let somebody hear this and be encouraged to bring their A game, their authenticity on in their relationship. Bye for now.